Thanks for tuning in to episode 208 of the Coffee Roaster Warm Sessions podcast. In this episode, we're joined by Cole Torode, who is one of the owners of Rosso Coffee, the owner of Forward Coffee, and a Canadian barista champion, as well as helped coach multiple world champions. Now, recently, Cole has been doing a lot of work in Panama with his company Forward Coffee, but one of the projects he's lately helped with has been the Best of Panama. Now, this year, the Best of Panama blew things out of the water with record-setting scores as well as record-setting auction results. Cole has been very close to the entire process, so in this episode, he's given us an inside look as to what was going on behind the scenes, what a coffee that scored 98 tastes like, and kind of his thoughts on the future of coffee. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. Today we have a special guest on the podcast, Cole Torode. We're going to jump into him and talk about a few fun things related to Best of Panama and whatnot. Unfortunately, I'm here without Sergi. Sergi could not make it, but I think this podcast is going to turn out pretty well. So, Cole, thanks for jumping on the podcast.
Of course, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, of course. Can you actually, every single podcast session, we usually we usually just brew a batch brew we just call batchy, and talk about some of the coffees that we're drinking. So, can you tell me a little bit about what are you drinking lately? What's catching your eye? What's catching your attention out of coffees? Could be just origin, producer, maybe a specific coffee that's been stand out to you lately.
Yeah, great question, Mark. My perspective on coffee has been very tunnel visioned this year. I've been living in Panama for the last 6 months, and so minus the month of August, I was living in Panama basically the entire year. So I've been drinking a lot of beautiful Panama geishas. I've been enjoying a very floral cup on average. I've been blessed to drink some wonderful coffees in the year, and most recently for me was the Esmeralda auction coffees. So I got one of their auction boxes. I helped them do some of the selections for the coffees that went into the auction while I was living in Panama. I helped with some quality control and quality assurance practices and some selections, and getting to roast that sample box and cup through it with my team in Calgary. I've got a roasting business in Calgary. Cup through it with my team there, and get to continue brewing and drinking some of those coffees afterwards has been pretty special.
Yeah, that's unreal. You're literally drinking like the best coffee, some of the best coffees in the world.
Creme de la creme.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then tell me how you're brewing them. I mean, you're like a Canadian. What did you do, barista?
I did both barista and brewers.
So
I brew them. I'm a pretty simple dude. I brew them with a V60. I don't do anything too wild or fancy. I use the same standardized recipe for brewing literally every coffee. I don't think you need to stray far once you find what's working for you. And I just change small variables, and V60, metal V60, man. That's my go-to bread and butter.
Okay, right on. Well, maybe we can touch upon that just a little bit.
You were hoping I was going to say batch brew. I know.
I was hoping. I'm like, what are the odds? What are the odds that he's going to say batch brew right now?
Yeah.
We're big fans of the batch brew. It's just, especially nowadays where you can get like a batch brew that is no longer like subpar. It's like pretty good with like very minimal effort. So you're like decreasing all friction points to getting a tasty cup of coffee and maximizing like output and consistency, which is like, I don't know. I guess it's not flashy and fun, but I mean, you get a good cup of coffee.
But hey, man, it works. It's consistent. We serve batch brew in our cafes. If I'm not familiar with a cafe and I go into it, I'm gonna buy the drip. I'm gonna buy the batch brew. I'm gonna, go with the thing that I think is gonna be the hardest to mess up.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
had to think about how to frame that, but I think batch brew's tough to mess up. Once it's set it and forget it. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's I mean it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because like literally almost every single coffee professional that we've had on the podcast, there haven't been many, but all of them have said whenever I go into a new cafe, I'm just getting the batchy, and I'm like, wow, it's not. I don't know. It's not what you would expect, but I guess that's what coffee professionals just naturally lean to. I don't know. So interesting.
Yeah, trust the equipment, trust the process,
Yeah.
trust the recipe, and once you break down that barrier, and you're like, shit, the batch is pretty good. Maybe I'll get a pour over. Maybe I'll get an espresso. Maybe I'll.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, for for the people who don't know you at all, have never heard of you, give us like in a nutshell, who is Cole, and kind of some of your experience working in coffee.
Yeah, sure. I am Cole. I've been in coffee since 2010, and I'm based in Calgary, Canada. Historically based in Calgary, Canada. Recently, I've moved to Boquete, Panama. I have three coffee businesses. The first one is where I got my start. I joined my brother at a cafe at the time called Rosso, and I helped him put together the roasting program and helped him sort of scale from being just cafe into roastery, and then from roastery into sourcing, and then kind of the journey involved there and building the coffee business. All of that was happening while we were competing in barista championships. So I was the competitor, my brother the coach. We were also business partners, so we're kind of dual wielding our roles, I guess. And in 2018 and 2019, won the Canadian Barista Championship, went on to be in the finals both those years in the Worlds. After that, decided we would start a second business, which was Forward Coffee. And that's a green coffee sourcing business that originally started kind of with a global perspective, and then this year has shifted to an individual perspective, and that's the business I operate in Panama. We very much come from a mindset of we'd like to achieve everything, or be involved in as many different camps as possible. And we've really changed our mindset the last maybe year, where we want to kind of shorten the vision but deepen the impact. And so we've let go of a lot of things that weren't bringing us value or bringing us peace or bringing us joy, or bringing us something that we were like, we can't lose this thing. And so we run Rosso Coffee Roasters. It's a roasting business with 5 cafes. We got Forward Coffee, which is based in Boquete, Panama, trading beautiful Panamanian geishas and varietals. And then we also have a podcast as well, thanks to lots of inspiration from seeing yourself and others put out the effort to bring coffee conversations to light. The podcast is called By the Drip.
Right on. That's awesome. I actually, literally first time I came across you guys and what you guys were doing was through the podcast By the Drip. And then I started listening, and I'm like, this is cool. This is awesome. And it's like, it's literally like exactly what we're doing. Like literally two brothers just working and running a coffee roastery, a coffee company together. And I was like, oh, interesting, and then listening, you guys seem to like just touch upon some things that I had similar thoughts on, but I've never heard anybody like put words to in the coffee industry. So I was like, okay, cool. This might be worth listening to, like more than one episode. So, that's really cool. That's really cool. Well, we recently just had Best of Panama just had their auctions wrap up a few weeks ago or something like that. Give us like a short intro into what Best of Panama is for the few people that might not know, and then go into talk a little bit about the world record setting coffee price, and what that's all about. So
Yeah, for sure. The Best of Panama is an annual competition that happens, of course, in Panama. I think this year was the 29th version of the competition, so started in 1996. The premise of the competition, it formed back in 1996 because coffee in Panama was not seen as a specialty product. It wasn't really even being purchased by commercial buyers. A lot of farms were being stuck with inventory at the end of the year because it was kind of getting passed over in Central and South America on people's tours. And I think it's seven families got together to form the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama. They went on to create a quality competition to kind of challenge each other to see, how well can you do, how well can I do, how well can we all do if we do a friendly, collaborative competition. So the Best of Panama came out of that. Today, I think something like 50 or 60 different farms participate in the BOP. I'll call it the BOP. And the way it works is all year as farms are tasting their crop, they're thinking, okay, this one's really good. Like I got to keep 42 kilos is the minimum quantity. I got to keep at least that much of this coffee to consider it for the BOP and consider it for, the competition. And so all year they'll kind of tag and put a little asterisk on their notes, BOP, 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 and then as the year goes on, they cup those coffees head to head. They start to eliminate, and then they have to select. They don't have to, however, you can be geisha wash, geisha natural, or varietal. You can have one coffee in each of those. So if you want to, you can submit one coffee into each of those three categories, and that all happens. I think the submission is early May. Let's say it's early May. I don't quite remember the dates, but I think it's right around there. And then toward the end of May, a 2 week evaluation component happens. The first week is the national jury. So it's mostly producers, that have their coffees in the competition, that the producers that are part of the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama, and then some national judges too that wouldn't be producers but have just been on this sort of annual cycle of evaluation. So they'll do the first week, they'll eliminate, I think this year started with about 160 coffees, and they select the top 24 in each category. So 72 coffees total. They eliminate around 100, whatever the actual number is there, right around 100. And then the following week is the international jury. So that'll be cuppers and buyers of Panama Geisha from around the world. So I'm one of the international judges. There's 22 international judges whose scores actually count into the rankings and awards. And then I think there was another 20 guest cuppers, if I'm not mistaken. And the week goes on, we cup the 24 in each category, we bring it down to 8. We do a final table for each, and then on the Saturday night, there's a big awards ceremony, gala. Nobody knows whose coffee has won. Everybody's making guesses. Ah, shit, Mark, that must have been your coffee. That tangerine note that was coming out, man. I only get that at your farm, and like people are making all these guesses as to who has won, et cetera, et cetera. It's a big formal gala, so everybody's in suit and tie, and it's like a fun time to get all dressed up. And for this is an agriculture competition when you dumb it down, right? So for a lot of people, this is like the night of the year that they're getting dressed up to go and celebrate themselves and their team and the community and whatnot. It's a beautiful celebration of coffee. And then everybody gets seated, and then they go and in eighth place, and in seventh place, and in sixth, and they announce your name. And you still there, Mark?
yep, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I had a call come in that pushed through my do not disturb.
All good.
The your name gets called, you come walking down the row or the center aisle, and it's like, yeah, yeah, and people are stoked, man, and it's just so much fun to see how excited people are from the results, and to get an award, to get your name or to get your coffee in the auction is like a huge honor, and for many people, it's a lot of money coming into their pocket when the auction is all said and done. So this year there were two records that were set. One was in the Geisha Natural category. It was the highest scoring coffee ever at 97 points, and ever being any public coffee evaluation, Cup of Excellence, private auctions, you name it, anything that's got a public evaluation component. This is the highest scoring coffee that's ever happened. And that was in the morning of the final day, and then in the afternoon the geisha wash was like the last table, and that exceeded the 97 points with a 98 point average, which is also just wild. Near perfect coffee. I think five judges had given it 100 points. I gave it a 98.5. I questioned to myself what was not in the cup that I took 1.5 points away. Like
Yeah.
what was missing, right? And I've lost a couple nights of sleep wondering that, thinking that to myself. Earlier this month, or earlier, I guess in August, was the auction, and the record prices that came out. So $30,204 per kilogram for that 98 point geisha wash from Hacienda La Esmeralda, which is absolutely wild, but also so incredibly exciting, in my opinion, for the industry and the conversations that have followed that. I think 99% of them have been super, super, super positive, growth mind, perspective. And there's, of course, 1% that we won't give any light to, but 1% of people that are like, this is the worst thing for the industry, tear it all down, burn it all down, this is just craziness. But I think we can talk about the 99 and sort of celebrate what's going on there, because I think it's a really fantastic historical moment in the industry that we won't truly know the impact for the whole community for many years to come.
Cool. Yeah, that's incredible. Before I definitely do want to tap into the some of your thoughts, because I mean you're probably one of the closest people to the scoring and kind of the auction, and just talk about some of the impacts on the industry. But tell us, I'm just like very, very curious. What does a 98 point coffee taste like, or 98.5, or even a coffee that you feel like should have probably scored maybe 100? Like what's that taste like? What I don't I literally cannot. I mean, I've tried a 94. I think was the Panama, the black jaguar. I should probably know the name of this, but
Yeah, Guarumo.
yes. So
Guarumo, the Black
I've
Jaguar.
tried
I
that.
think I think that might have been a 96, Mark. I think that might have been a
No way.
96.
Are you serious?
All this time you've been living 2 points lower than your actual threshold, man.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So never mind. I guess I know what a 96 tastes like. So all right. Next question.
Uh,
No.
no, the 90, the 98, the 97. So both of them are from the same region. Both of them are from an area called Nido, Nido. That's from Hacienda La Esmeralda, and uh, it was the Geisha Natural in the morning. It was the wash in the afternoon for that final evaluation, and they taste the same. And this to me was such a fascinating experience. We talk about terroir in the industry all the time, and oh, these are terroir flavors, and this is terroir, and it's like, I don't know. I think that's kind of hocus pocus in a sense. It's definitely, there's something there, but for somebody to say that, oh, this coffee, I'm tasting the terroir, it's like, what does that mean? That's just like a pseudo pretentious way of saying the coffee tastes really great. Kinda. I don't know. First time that I've ever, with confidence, said this is terroir. These coffees are from the same place because the root of their flavor is so aligned. like 60, maybe 70% of my flavor note would have perfectly doubled from the natural into the washed. And they just had so many like core comparisons for me at least, and that would have been like tons of white flower, jasmine, jasmine, jasmine. There's another white flower called gardenia that has this like buttery element added to it that these coffees had a lot of for me, gardenia. I played a song. There's a this is kind of a corny side story, but I'm going to tell it anyway, Mark. Okay, I'm going
Okay,
to tell it
let's
anyway.
go.
There's after every cupping table, we all go into a room, we eat some food, and then we all go into a room and we do a deliberation, and the microphone will get passed around, and this all exists on YouTube, and you can bring this up if you want to. I get handed the mic for the geisha washed, and as I'm cupping the table, I'm listening to music, and I'm listening to Buena Vista Social Club, which is a fantastic like Latin, uh, beautiful Spanish songs, and kind of just really nice like salsa type of music is what I'm listening to. They've got a song called Dos Gardenias. So two gardenias, and the chorus essentially says, "I've got two gardenias for you." And this song is playing as I'm cupping this coffee, and I'm thinking to myself, what a perfect song, to cup this coffee. And in the deliberation, I had written in my note that got put into Cropster and like into the whole database. I wrote on my note, "Go to Spotify and play Dos Gardenias by Buena Vista Social Club." And then I ended up singing the chorus in the deliberation, which was, one of the more humiliating things I've done in recent times. My face just went pure red. And anyway, that's the song you should listen to get the vibe of that coffee.
Okay.
It was like so white flower, white, all the way through, white peach, citrus, like brown sugar, like a rich, sweet, brown, sugary type of idea. Uh, Super delicious, like elegant, refined. It's not. A lot of people think quality in coffee aligns with strength. This coffee had intensity, but it wasn't like strong, strong in nature. It was intense in like the complexity and amount of flavors that were coming out and just how
Can
clear
you
they
can
were.
you for a quick second just discern the define strength versus intensity?
Yeah, strength would be, I think, strength we can scale through brewing. Intensity we can too, but
Uh huh.
uh, I think when I say intensity in terms of like acidity, there would be, how do I say this? It's like a subtle nuance. It's like fragrance and aroma. They're kind of the same thing, but they're also slightly
Mm-hmm.
different. It's like
Mm-hmm.
intensity is more attribute driven, where strength for me would be more recipe or approach driven. And I don't know if that is a
Okay.
true distinction between the two, but I'm gonna say final answer on that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I was just curious. The other thing that's coming to mind is how are best of Panama coffees for judges roasted? I know roast is such a big. I mean, it could be. I mean, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like the difference between could be between like a very high score and a very low score. Like there's definitely been coffees where we've cupped on the cupping table and we're sourcing coffees where you do one pass and that coffee just does not work and then you run another roast on it and for it to go on the second round and it's like, oh wow, this cools way differently, this is way more juicier, this is way more everything. How are they even roasting it? What's give me a little snippet on that. I don't want to spend too much time, but I'm just it's just sparking my curiosity.
It's an important question. I think a lot of coffees get lost in the roast, right? You cup a table and you're like, yeah, this
Yeah.
coffee is no good, and you just rule it
Yeah.
out because of roast, and then it's actually maybe the best coffee on the table. Just the approach wasn't correct. This year, BOP had Stronghold as a sponsor, so all the coffees were roasted on Stronghold. There's a team of maybe 8 to 10 roasters that they're roasting everything 2 days before we're cupping. And I don't really know what was happening 100% in the back room, but my understanding is they roast three, maybe four batches, whatever the necessity is. They take a color reading of those batches. They need to fall within a certain range, and then they blend those batches together, is what I was told they're doing, so that everybody in the room gets the same experience, whether, they blended two exceptional batches with two good batches,
Right.
and lowered the potential for two of them. It's like we all need to get the same experience for the evaluation. And the roasting team did a really nice job. I think the coffees were singing on the table, and definitely, some were kind of left behind in the aftermath of not the best profile. But I mean, you got
And are these?
160 copies your
Yeah.
profile, and that's a tough
Yeah.
gig. It's a losing
Yeah.
effort. Many people will praise the team doing the roasting, right? Those are unsung heroes.
Yeah. I would not want to be the roaster for that coffee. I'll pass that on to somebody else.
Yeah.
Is um what was I gonna ask? How and how light are they developing those for cuppings? Are they doing like a slightly more developed than like a filter, like a
They
a
they
fairly light
use
filter, or what are they?
they use a tool for color that runs on Eggtron, and I believe the range for them is 88 to 92 or something like that, 87 to 91. I don't know exactly those numbers, but when we're in the deliberation and at the front of the room, there will be a big projector, and the head judge will be like, "Okay, and on coffee number one, the color was whatever 89.2. Okay, great," and he'll confirm that, and we'll do that before we continue on into the deliberation. And sometimes you'll see stuff stray a little bit beyond that, above or below, and maybe that has an impact in the cup that you get to see on the scores as they go out on the screen.
Yep. Okay. All right. Talk to me a little bit about this crazy high scoring coffee is
Mhm.
sold at this crazy high price point. Why is that good or not good? But mostly, why is that good for the industry? And why do you think that? I mean, why we just need to celebrate more of that? And what do you think are the some of the long term effects on the coffee industry when you have coffees that are scoring so, I mean, just so high and then being sold for so high?
Right. Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to the price going this high, but I think in my perspective, the pros list far outweighs the cons. 30,000 a kilo is like it's a new category, right? When you get into those price points, I think what has just happened a month ago is the industry has created a new category, and that's sort of luxury coffee, which 6 months ago or a year ago didn't really exist. The way most people referenced high-end coffees was competition coffee, which I think is such a poor use case of language to put into marketing in a day-to-day coffee shop, because competition, you put competition coffee on the shelf and somebody walks in and it's like, I'm not competitive with my coffee. I don't think I want to buy the competition coffee. That doesn't sound right for me. So you're immediately eliminating the consumer perspective from your top end offering in your cafes because you're ostracizing them with the language that they're using. And then in reality, there's no such thing as a competition coffee. It's just a higher quality coffee theoretically than the other stuff. And so I think the pricing helps kind of define that there is this upper segment of coffee, this sort of luxury market. And a lot of people don't like luxury markets because they're, very, very small niche. But I think it's really important because what ends up happening, and if we go back to 2004 when the geisha was first discovered and sort of brought to light was through the Best of Panama, through Hacienda La Esmeralda, through the same family. When they put it into the auction, it sold for $21 a pound, which is $45, $46 a kilo. And at that point, people were like, this is crazy. Coffee can't be that expensive. That was the record price at the time, 20 years ago. Coffee can't be this expensive. Let's burn it all down. This is just crazy. And if we fast forward, it's like that price has normalized for a lot of farms around the world. They sell that off the shelf. They'd sell that price, that's their starting rate, that's their high rate, that's their low rate, that's maybe even lower than what a lot of farms will sell for, depending on their scope, where they are, what they're doing, etc., the brand recognition. And if you think then to now, it's like the higher it goes, the more space we have, the more opportunity we have for everything else to rise. I think everybody talks about the trickle down effect. I don't really think it's trickling down. It's more that will pull the rest of us up and will give more clear definition to the categories that exist today in coffee, which is commercial coffee, which is going to be, most of the segment. Even most specialty roasters are serving commercial coffee pretending it's specialty. There's the specialty segment, which doesn't have a big enough discerning point today against commercial that people really understand the distinction. So I think this will help pull it away from the commercial category into its own clearly defined realm. And then we have luxury, so there's the three there. And then I would argue we also have the flavored category, which is going to be the co-ferments, it's going to be the infused coffees, it's going to be the non-natural. So I would argue there's now four categories today. We just haven't put clear language into each of them. And then this new one has just come of luxury coffee that's being defined kind of in the moment as we go through the history and records.
Okay. Interesting. That's very interesting. Everything you're saying is I would for sure agree with. Yeah. Do you? I think the other side of another component that makes this very, very beneficial is something you and I talked about, last week when we just touched base a little bit, is that there's like a storytelling component that is very beneficial, kind of like, Netflix in the F1, series. Like, nobody really cared about F1. Like, let's be honest, nobody even thought about it, nobody watched it, and now it's just like a phenomenon that is now just so widely accepted by people simply because there was some storytelling added behind it. People saw it, people experienced it, and we're just thrilled to just jump on and be part of it. And I think there's lots of benefit when, there are maybe some news, some media that's covering, because of course the shocking price point, like why the hell is coffee costing this outrageously amount? Like, that's actually beneficial, because at some point somebody who doesn't drink coffee at all or doesn't care much for coffee at least is now getting exposed to the fact that there is this world of coffee that is that it's more than just, oh cool, I just want some black water in my mug, I'm gonna down it on my way to work or something, like that kind of exposure just matters. Like, I remember trying that Best of Panama in Portland at Proud Mary, and just the way it was just making local headlines, and even some national headlines of like, hey, why is a cup of coffee costing $150? And what is it? What's the story behind it? I think that's huge. That's beneficial. I mean, it should also make everybody working, especially working in specialty coffee, should make us proud about the craft that we're actually taking part of.
For sure. Absolutely. I have two thoughts on that. I think, on the proud thought, when I got into the industry in kind of late 2009, early 2010, so I graduated high school. I didn't go to university. I started making coffee. You have no idea how many friends and family members told me at that time that it's like, what are you doing, man? This is a dead end. This is a dead end job. Like it's a transient job.
Yep.
You're wasting your time. You got to go you got to get an education, get a career, get this, get that. And it's like, I don't have to do that. I think there's something here, and it's like at that point, specialty coffee hardly has a definition, hardly exists. It's, 15 years later, like we've come a really long way. The exciting thing is, fasten your seatbelt. We've got a really long way to keep going, in my opinion. That's what I think this sort of historical marker tells us is we're just kind of getting started, and there's a lot of opportunity for those of us that want to plant our feet and continue to grow in the industry. My second thought on that, and we talked about this a little bit last week when we touched base. The $150 cup I've paid. I think the most I paid was 188 for a cup, and the most I've sold a cup for is $200. And speaking as the consumer, where I paid 188, it was in Taiwan, so the 88 is like a numerically lucky symbol in that part of the world, and three of us at a table, we order a coffee. Incredible experience. It's made tableside. We get to select our, I think, porcelain, bone china cups that we want to drink out of. We get a, very cool experience. Coffee was okay. Like, I don't know. It comes with so much like pressure on it to make it worth $188, right? And in the moment I'm drinking it, I'm like, it's a great cup of coffee. Is it worth $188? I don't know. Who can decide that? 5 years later, I've told that story 100 times, and therefore I've justified the value of that experience, right? That obviously was an experience that was memorable for me. It might not have been the best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. And in the moment, maybe didn't justify, but I've told that story at least 100 times. And, there's value in the experience. We can't only think of the cup. And we need to remember that the value comes from that full package. No different to a barista listening that is taking the time to pour a beautiful, latte art on top of a latte, a quick pour, but really nice that might make somebody's day. Like that experience matters. And I think the more that we can build the experience into the craft and into the service, I think that the more success we'll continue to see in specialty and in this sort of luxury defining segment as well.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I'm glad you touched upon the experience part. That is 100%. Like everything, even just from your thought of realizing I'm drinking this special coffee that only so many cups of coffee, like only so many cups are brewed in the world is like that, just everything, And also I think in general, like for those maybe listening that work in cafes and whatnot, like the goal should always be to create an exceptional experience for your guests that makes, and oftentimes that doesn't cost a lot. Sometimes
No,
it's just
like a little bit of effort and a little bit of time. And
yeah. It's like, how do we make, that Colombian pink bourbon feel like a best of Panama coffee? And that gets, not that it's going to be the same, but it's like, how do you still pass on that, I don't know, little bit of that expertise, the excellence, I don't know, just the pride behind like, holy cow, we're in an industry that serves freaking incredible coffees. That's, I mean, arguably probably hasn't been like this ever, and you get to be part of it. I don't know. I think there's something cool right there. So before we jump in there, I know we have like 10 minutes. Let's jump into Forward Coffee. You
sure.
rebooted Forward. Tell me a little bit about what's the vision, what's the thought behind Forward, as you call it, 2.0. And what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Yeah, Forward in its original form was sourcing from, I think, 12, maybe 13 different countries and trying to have an impact and presence in all of those. And I was traveling to buy those coffees. I was, doing as much of the sort of quote unquote direct as I could, wanting to create as much value as possible for both producers and buyers. And let me tell you, the green coffee business is very cash intensive. And to be doing 12 different origins, if you just average it out, that essentially means you're making at least one purchase per month averaged through the year. And so if you fall a little bit behind in your sales cycle, man, does the cash flow get tough. And so I kind of experienced that, lesson learned, lived and grown from, and I got stuck, I think, literally and figuratively holding the bag, right? And so found my way out of that, no problem, learned from it and decided to pause Forward in its current stance. It was profitable, it was doing well, it was just very stressful. And it was doing too much. It was trying to achieve too much. So the business paused in September. I was away basically September until January. I was out of country, and I really enjoyed doing the business at Forward. I really enjoy that particular element of the coffee segment and green coffee and sort of sourcing and cupping and evaluating and getting to know producers and that sort of thing. And Panama was one of my sort of sweetheart, countries on the list that I was doing, and it was a lot of my revenue at the time when I paused. So I thought to myself, it's a small country geographically. Can I maybe do it from the ground and rebuild it from the ground up? And so I started that earlier this year. I lived in Panama for 6 months, and just started, cupping and cupping and cupping and cupping and cupping and getting the perspective on trying to get as much perspective on the season as possible and see as many different producers and what does early harvest, mid harvest, late harvest taste like, because normally I'm only there for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it might be. I run around, I taste as much as I can, but I get a small perspective into the season. This year I cupped 2,000 coffees, a little over 2,000 coffees, and got a huge perspective on the season. And with some farms like Hacienda La Esmeralda, I think I cupped 400 or more coffees.
Wow.
There's, I think, 5 or 6 farms that I'm 100 to 300 coffees, and trying to shorten, as I said earlier, kind of shrink the vision and deepen the impact. And so I started just shipping everything from Panama. I got an exporter's license. I registered a business down there, and now I am shipping from my door, not from the farm. I'm buying the coffee from the farm. I'm bringing it to my own warehouse. I'm consolidating it with other options if you want other options. So we could put 2, 3, 4, 5 different farms together, whatever, put it into the same shipment, and then I'll ship it to your door. All of it runs on an e-commerce platform that's forward.coffee. If you go on there, it's password protected. Just because it's a wholesale site, it's password protected, and I think better overall. I got in trouble for being too transparent in my previous model. So I keep it behind just a door, and part of the reason is I want to connect with people that go onto the website. I'd like to talk to them. I'd like to know their needs. I'd like to know how I can help out. And so if you're listening to this, forward.coffee, check it out. Send me a quick email, grab that password, and I can help you get situated with some beautiful Panamanian coffees.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm going to need that password, Cole.
We'll
Yeah, I have
talk.
to pass that on to me. One last thing I want to touch upon. I listened to a podcast with you, and your brother's name is Brian, right? Or David?
David.
You mentioned sourcing as a service, which I thought was cool. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's like a play on words of like SaaS. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but I thought that model is very interesting. Can you I know we don't have very much time, but can you just explain a little bit about what service sourcing as a service, your approach to that, and why it's it's beneficial?
Yeah, totally, totally. I think the way that a lot of people frame sourcing right now is like I have to travel to the country to buy, which like yes you do and no you don't. There's a huge cost that you incur in the travel, right? So let's zoom out and we'll use my travel to Panama as a previous example. If I'm going there for a week or 10 days or something like that, you know, probably about 5 grand once you're all said and done in terms of travel, right? Flights, hotels, you got to rent a car, you got food every day, you got your meals. Like once you start to stack everything up, let's call it 5 grand. That's generous, I think, but it can be up there depending where you're coming from in the world and where you have to commute to. That's expensive. And if we're looking at this truly from a business perspective, how much coffee are you buying in that trip to Panama, right? Are you buying $5,000 worth of geisha? Are you buying $50,000 worth of geisha? Or are you buying, 100 plus thousand dollars worth of geisha? If you're buying 5,000, you can't justify the trip. That doesn't make sense. If you're buying 50,000 and your cost for the trip is 10% of your budget to spend on product, I don't know if that makes sense. And I don't know if many people are buying more than $50,000 worth of coffee from Panama, yet everybody is traveling to Panama. And so the idea of sourcing as a service is like, I talked to a roaster and they want the best coffees, but they don't want to spend a week of time. That's the other cost, right? Is they don't want to every year have to spend a week or 10 days or 2 weeks and they don't want to be away from their family, away from the business, away from, whatever life looks like to them. They didn't start a roasting business to be on the road all the time, right? But that's the sort of expectation that the industry has sort of put out there. If you want to be a top roaster, you got to go source your own coffee, whatever that actually means. And so, by living there, I've got, the opportunity to taste, in theory, anything, any day. I can drive to any farm or QC lab with the right scheduling and appointments, and you tell me, hey, I'm looking at this farm in this area. I'd love to try their geishas and their pacamara. Can you go and cup that for me? And I'll go do that, and I'll save them the effort of having to send the samples your way, which is time on their end. It's capital expenditure on their end. It's cash flow restrictive on their end because they can't sell those coffees if they've sampled them out to you. They're waiting for you to get back to them. And then on your end, it's a lot of time to roast and cup through samples, and so that's cash as well, right? Time costs us money, and so the idea of sourcing as a service is I use a standardized evaluation procedure, and if you trust my cupping and sort of trust my notes on the year, then we can make some great collaboration. And I've had a lot of roasters this year that are like, hey, I'm about to sell out of this farm. Can you recommend, 2, 3 more coffees? And then I will consolidate those with other farms and ship them to whoever is buying. And for them, it takes a lot of effort off their page. And I take a small lift. And obviously, that's the value creation that I'm making in the business. That's kind of the idea of sourcing as a service. Or if you need something specifically, I can go track it down and try to find it for you.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. Like there's obviously just from personal experience, we have like similar relationships in Colombia like that. And man, when somebody can just say, "Hey, I've sourced, several coffees for you," I kind of pretty much know what you're looking for, and can just send me
Yeah.
like 3 samples, and they're all like within the ballpark. that's so much more comfortable than, oh my gosh, having to go through like 20, 30 different samples before you land on one. Like, it's just such a game changer.
Sourcing based on
Yep.
trust is just so much nicer, right? It's better in all categories, and the best relationships are the ones where I can pick up the phone and go, "Hey, Mark, I need a coffee. I need it to be, somewhere in this realm, maybe similar to that thing you sent me once upon a time, and do you have anything?" And you're like, "Yeah, okay, great. You need samples or just send it? Just
Hmm.
send it, man. I trust you." Like those are the best. That's true direct trade,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yep. Right on. Well, Cole, thank you so much. Um, I enjoyed this conversation. I think this was fun getting a little sneak peek into Panama, best of Panama. Can you just share where people should find you? You mentioned forward FWD coffee, or is that correct?
Uh, the website is forward spelt out,
Oh,
FORWARD dot
okay.
coffee. The Instagram and socials are FWD Coffee. And then you can find me on, uh, do I want to give my email? You can find my email through the website. Go to the website. You can find my email there. And then my social handle is Torodeo, Torodeo. And you can send me a message at any time if you have any questions or any sort of follow up from this conversation or beyond. Feel free to holler. I'm here
Awesome.
for you.
Well, thank you so much, Cole. Looking forward to just keeping up with what you're doing. Hopefully, we can cross paths in real life, IRL. And yeah, best of luck on everything you're doing, and maybe we'll source some Panama with you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.
All
Appreciate you
right.
having me on here, man. Congrats on the
Thanks.
wedding this weekend and all the best.
All right. Thank you.